Blog Talk Radio.
They walk among us, now on A View from the Bunker. On a crisp night in the heartland of America, welcome to A View from the Bunker. I'm Derek Gilbert. Tonight we'll talk a little bit about media and how it can influence people, especially people who might not necessarily be open to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, our guest for tonight is a gentleman who's been an actor since 1986. He served as an award-winning writer, director, and actor in corporate videos for about the last 15 years. And he's also served as a missionary, visiting 15 countries over the last half dozen years or so. And now he's developing a television project that looks to me like the best elements of the X-Files and Millennium put together, but from a Christian perspective. It's our honor to welcome Rob Skiba to the bunker tonight. Rob, good to talk with you again. We had the chance to meet in Canton, and it's good to to spend a little more time.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on tonight. Man, what a conference that was, huh?
It was. As much for the fellowship as for anything else. But the thing that really amazed me, the thing that I took away, which I guess is kind of embarrassing to admit because this is something that guests on this program and on PID Radio have been talking about for the last 5 years, is that science is a religion. I shouldn't have let it surprise me the way it did, but it was. What was the thing that you took away from the Supernatural Science and Prophecy Conference?
Oh, man, it was just great to be around a bunch of people who get it, because, if you're talking about this stuff to most people, they look at you like you have three heads, They think you're kind of a freak or something,
And to suggest you might be happier at the church down the road?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we've run a few people off ourselves, so... just hearing from the experts in the various fields that I've been studying for a long time, and to actually sit and talk with the people one-on-one, go to dinner with them, it was really amazing.
Well, sadly, we got into town. Sharon got into town a little late on was it Friday evening, so that we weren't able to share dinner with you and your lovely wife Sheila. But we did have a chance to have breakfast on Sunday morning, and that was it just a fascinating discussion, the kind of thing that Sharon and I talk about all the time. Which is essentially what we talk about on PID Radio. We just turn on the mics and share it with other people. But it's, as you say, unusual and a real blessing to have the chance to talk about that with other believers. So
I have to tell you, as soon as we got home, your wife talked on biotechnology and that sort of thing.
Right.
And we got home to Dallas, where we live, and we happened to watch the X-Files. We ended up watching the episodes called the Erlenmeyer Flask.
The Erlenmeyer Flask, yes.
Yes, that one's loaded. At first, the episode starts dealing with transgenics and human-plant cloning hybrids and microbiological evidence of alien virus, which was based on a new base pair in the DNA, and an experiment called purity control. And they are led to a warehouse in the course of the episode called Zeus Storage.
Right.
And the address of the warehouse was 1616 Pandora Street. And knowing Chris Carter and the people over there at the X-Files, they load the series with symbols and stuff all the time. And so I went and looked up Revelation 16:16, and it basically talks about them, just like Revelation 19:19, gathering in the place that in the Hebrew is called Armageddon. So, of course, Pandora. That's kind of interesting. So Fox goes there and finds a bunch of hybrid humans in water tanks, right? And Scully goes to the 7th floor of the Georgetown University building, the cryogenics floor, and discovers a frozen alien baby. And there's a really interesting dialogue with the character named Deep Throat. Later, Deep Throat gets killed and the alien baby package gets taken away to the Pentagon. This is where it gets really weird because the smoking man takes the evidence and puts it in this warehouse, kind of like Indiana Jones, at the end of the first movie. And then he leaves and he closes the door behind him, and the camera goes in on the sign on the door, which said Pentagon. It says, "In case of fire or emergency, know your exits." And below that it had a picture of the Pentagon evacuation procedure, and it shows an arrow going right from the point where the plane hit 7 years later.
Oh, really?
And as the video is about to fade to black, I hit pause because I was freaking out, And when I hit pause, it paused at 45 minutes and 11 seconds. 4 plus 5 is 9 plus 11. It's 9/11.
9/11. Okay. Oh boy.
And the seventh floor being 7 years later, I'm going. I'm a conspiracy freak, so I was just going nuts watching that. But I thought you'd enjoy that just because all the stuff we were talking about up there.
Yeah. There are a lot of interesting memes there, and I'm not sure that all of those memes are put in by the human actors. I think those things may have
made their way in there.
Made their way in there or been influenced. The human actors may have been influenced by the powers and principalities that with which we contend. Rob, a little bit of background on you.
Sure.
Before we get into talking about your proposed series called Seed, you've been acting for near 25 years now, and how do you go from? I mean, are we talking dinner theater or college acting, high school? What's the career path from 1986 to 2010?
Well, I'm actually going to back up a little bit farther to 1977. I was 7 years old, sitting in a darkened theater watching Star Wars for the first time. And after I saw it 13 more times in the theater the first year it came out, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I said I was either going to be an astronaut, a movie star, or a filmmaker by the time I was 30, or I'd be dead. And it wasn't because I thought I had a death wish or anything. I just figured if I hadn't achieved those goals by the time I was 30, it was because I was dead. So I got busy right away, and I got a 8mm camera. It was pretty much glued to my face growing up. But my first ambition was to be an astronaut and joined the Army, flew helicopters with ambitions of getting into various flight programs to lead me to NASA, but that never happened. So that was when, after numerous attempts, it didn't work out. I said, you know what, I think I need a career change. And in 1993, I got out of the service, did a stint with an organization that's the initials were C and I and A.
Okay.
For about a year, and they were going to send me off someplace, and it was one of those deals where if you got sick, hurt, or killed, but nobody knows you exist. Things. I was like 25 years old. I thought I'm a little too young for that. So then I ended up getting a gig with Alvin and the Chipmunks, and toured around the country yelling Alvin. And that reignited some the acting juices that I had actually got started in high school. I helped to start the drama club in my high school. And so that got me into college theater. Actually helped start a few community theater groups and stuff like that. And then that naturally progressed back into having a camera again, shooting some and writing some of my own stuff, and then doing corporate video. Mm-hmm. And did corporate video for about 14 years or so. And then that led me down to Dallas, where I ended up working for an international missions organization and creating documentaries that help missionaries to create awareness for what they do and raise support. So it's been quite an amazing journey.
Yeah, and kind of a strange one too. I mean, from military, a brush with the intelligence services, and then missionary in the foreign field, which sometimes sadly overlaps with intelligence work. But and
the chipmunks in the middle.
And the chipmunks in the middle. So yeah, well, I can relate. So the inspiration for your proposed sci-fi series, Seed, where does it come from?
Boy, that comes from a lifetime of research. I've always been fascinated with the dynamics of the flood. I asked the question in 5th grade when they were trying to force evolution down my throat. I said, if we came from monkeys, how come they're still monkeys? And nobody can answer that question very well, to my satisfaction. And I asked it every year in between my junior high school and high school. They stopped calling it the theory of evolution and started calling it just evolution. And I thought, wow, they proved a lot over summer vacation. And so I just found myself getting into a lot of debates in school, and a lot of the students were actually leaning more towards what I was saying than what the teachers were saying. And so as I continued to do my studies, I started finding out a whole bunch of interesting things. In particular, we start looking at the last days. Jesus made the statement, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. And one of the things that I didn't really study a whole lot, because I was more obsessed with the dynamics of the flood itself, was the reason for the flood. And that starts in Genesis chapter 6. And Genesis 6 begins with the sons of God coming down to the daughters of men and creating what the Bible calls Nephilim. Now, that's a little bit of the background. I've always had that kind of in the back of my head, but one of my last mission trips was to Cyprus. And there was a missionary conference taking place there, and it was an opportunity for me to get a lot of people in one place and get a bunch of stories. So I started interviewing people, and as part of that trip, I got to go to Greece. It was actually my second time going to Athens. And while I was there, you literally cannot look in any direction without seeing a mythological creature. You know, there's sculptures, paintings, everywhere you look. You see a centaur, a minotaur, a satyr or something. And I thought to myself, man, nobody's going to remember Yoda 4,000 years from now. So why is it that this culture still they have all these creatures, these so-called, mythological creatures in their collective consciousness, if all it was a story written by a blind poet named Homer? There must be some truth to this. And I came back home with that thought in my head, and I was telling my wife about it, and we had a discussion about it that night and went to bed. The next morning, she checks her email, and there was an article in her email there. It said, scientists have successfully cloned a sheep with a human heart. And the article went on to say if they keep doing this, eventually what they're going to have is the genes are going to fuse together, and you're going to have an animal-human hybrid, and then there are going to be all kinds of ethical issues to deal with at that point. And so look at this, And as I kept doing my studies, that just really got me intrigued, and I started really diving in. I found the book of Joshua. And, I just say this, that the Bible has a lot of books. It mentions a lot of books that aren't in the Bible.
That's true.
Actually, a lot more than you would think. And one of them in particular, the book of Joshua, is mentioned twice. And so, I had seen some stuff online with regards to animal-human hybrids in reference to that book, and I've always been intrigued by what is that book anyway, so it was just another reason to go find it. And it didn't take me long. You don't get very far in the book, and it starts telling you what happened in Genesis 6. One of the things it says is that one of the things the Watchers, the angels that came down and mated with women, one of the things that they did was teach the art of mixing one species with another. And then it goes on to describe all the things and the theories that I already had. So it was like validation for what I was thinking. As I started looking at all this, the first prophecy in the Bible is God having the discussion with Adam and Eve and the devil, and says to the devil that Eve's seed is going to crush his head. And, you don't have to turn but a few more pages and you realize the devil said, oh, yeah? Well, then I'm going to mess up the seed, And that's when you get Genesis chapter 6. So that just became the natural title for the series because it's all about the seed.